All right, so welcome to another episode of the Thrive Success Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Garbutt, and with me today is Patrick Searson. So Patrick is the creator of the Rugby Development Coach, and he was a regular PT strength coach in a gym working 50 hours a week to now working online with over 500 athletes. So he started working in a gym when he was just 18 years old, and he loved training for rugby, and he wanted to get the most out of his body as possible. And so without being a naturally big guy, he had to train harder and smarter to get selected in first grade rugby. And he's now used what he'd learned to help a few other rugby players who wanted to get the same results in speed, size, and strength. And this gave him the idea to go fully online and gain his time back, and also to serve more people. And this was a feat not easily done. So with persistence, education, and results, he's now built Rugby Development Coach into a business which is growing rapidly, on the road to 1,000 active members. So Pat, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. It's almost like I read that. I wrote that myself.
Yeah, it's it just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? So Pat, I'm really looking forward to getting into this podcast today. I've known you for a little bit over 12 months now, and I've seen how your business has grown, which has been absolutely amazing. And I've also seen the transformations that you help your clients achieve as well in your RDC system. And one thing that I really love is just the amount of influence that you can have on these young kids getting into rugby. And I see that like the results that you're helping these guys achieve, like it would, massively help their rugby career, but I'm sure that it'd also trickle over into other areas of their life as well. I've found for myself, I've found like being in a really great system or really great flow in my training, and just that increased confidence, focus, and even discipline can just trickle over into other areas of life. And for this podcast, the title of this podcast is how to optimize your hormonal drive to dominate life. And I really feel that, being in a great routine with your training can just trickle over into those other areas of life. So I'm really excited to dive into that stuff today with you.
Yeah, I agree. I'm fully on board with that. And you see that with the transformations of people, especially young males. Like they're growing up in this age where like you got social media, you got everything going on, everything's really quick, and if they've got something to focus on, and strength is an easy thing to focus on because it's very tangible. You can change their brains to want to keep on growing, and to have this, to change their mind from quick and easy results like what you get on Instagram and stuff like that, quick and easy dopamine, to these long grinding, okay, here's my goals, I'm going to get to here, and I'm going to work this out. So yeah, definitely on board with that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think like some of the things that you started talking on there, like social media with the dopamine, like that would be such a big distraction for people in life moving towards their goals, right? And I just want to ask you, just to kick the podcast off, like I know in your bio, in your introduction, you said that like you didn't start out as like the big guy on the rugby field. Like, do you remember what life was like before you started like really focusing in on your training for rugby?
Yeah, I'll just answer that. I'm still not the big guy on the rugby field by any means, but I am stronger and faster than a lot of guys. I started training when I was about 15 for rugby specifically. Actually, probably before then, 14. I was doing boot camps at 5 a.m. My brother ran boot camps. Little did I know that was terrible for my sleep patterns and broken recovery for that age. But I was committed. Like I wanted to do better, and like I was just always driven. I just remember always being told, "You're too small, too small, you're too small, you're too small. You got to get bigger." And like I could play. Like there was no problem with my playing because I grew up with two older brothers. So being the youngest, I was always wrestling them and being used to being around bigger kids than me. So I just remember it being like, just a place, even when I was a kid, that I just wanted to get better. I wanted to be my best I could be.
Yeah. And so like, because my next question was going to be like, was that competitiveness something that was always in your life, or was it something you developed? But it kind of sounds like even from very young, it's always been like a bit of a trait that you've had to always pursue the very best that you could be, or pursue that path of excellence.
Yeah, it's funny. I've been going sort of late, have been really like backtracking into my life, and like working out like, you know, why I do certain things, and looking at you know, just my life in general. And like, yeah, you say competitiveness, and like I come from a family of four kids, and I'm their second youngest. So I think it was just pure, you know, competitiveness to try and win over mum and dad's love, you know, like their attention. And that grew into sports, that grew into whatever I did. Like I just had to compete at things, and I had to win, you know. So yeah, so from a young age, always competitive, like brothers and sisters, cousins, doesn't matter. I have a lot of cousins as well. So there was always competition.
Yeah. And what would you say, like was there a point like in your rugby where you actually didn't get picked for first grade? Like, was that like a bit of a catalyst for you to like really take it up a notch, for you to like improve your training? Or was it just that same sort of feeling that you had from when you were younger of needing to be bigger for rugby that sort of put you on that path?
Sort of a few events actually. Like the main one was probably my knee injury. It wasn't like the worst knee injury. It was an MCL tear. It was grade 2 MCL, and it was just on the verge of making, of like, you know, I was in the realms of making first grade when I was in my early 20s. I think I was 20 at the time actually. And like I didn't train. I trained hard, but like I didn't train how I know how to train now. If I trained how I knew now, I probably wouldn't have done the MCL. I probably would have had actually mobility for my hip to be able to move, and my knee not to take the brunt of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that set me back 6 weeks, and I did all the stuff that I got told to do, and then I came back, and within like 20 minutes, I had redone it, and then redone it worse. I did PCL as well this time.
Oh yeah.
And so like that was the turning point where I was like, all right, something's not right here. I need to know more. And there was always this feeling within me that like I trained so hard, but I didn't have the results that I thought were possible as well. You know, like I thought there was always a lot more in me.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't look the way I wanted. I wasn't as fast as what I could have been. And yeah, there was just that underlying thing that was holding back my potential as well.
So what do you reckon having had that experience, like what's the difference in your mind between like a person training hard and a person training to get results? Like if you were training hard back then, like what was it specifically that wasn't happening that caused you to not have the results that you wanted?
Just the movement patterns weren't good enough. So it was very much a powerlifting, like I was doing very much more like powerlifting with a mix of bodybuilding sort of stuff. And I didn't move heaps well, and I didn't have the power where I needed to. And it wasn't until I started doing, I got into Charles Poliquin's work. And like that just made so many different things click.
Gotcha.
Especially about the quads. Like my whole, like how I squatted just totally changed. Everything was like a high bar or a front squat, and learning how to use the quads to be able to create the drive. And there was a lot of things around that, and even training the calves properly.
Yeah, right. Because that's probably like one thing that you see a lot in the fitness industry is like there's so many different methods out there and so many training styles. And like, you know, I've been caught up in the past. I know myself that, you know, just been conflicted, like what one do I follow, what one's best. And, you know, I've come across many people over the years who've almost felt like, you know, overwhelmed to the point where they, you know, don't do anything to kind of get themselves going. And like probably a lot of the guys listening who are more so in business for themselves, or looking to get into business, and in that sort of 9 to 5 grind, would you say for those kind of guys it's just important just to get their body moving in any way first, or are there more specific or beneficial ways to get started?
I think something's better than nothing. Especially at the start of the day. Like, I always like to get a workout done early in the morning. Like that's my go-to. Get going, get that done, get my brain switched on. All right, sweet, I'm done. Can tick that off for the day. All right, let's go to the next thing.
Yeah.
And then I usually have my breakfast and then move on. But I think anything is better than nothing. I think strength work is probably the best thing for most people to do, rather than a lot of cardio work. And yeah, I think their brains will really switch on from that.
So when you said like you train early in the morning, and it's first thing you do, like what sort of time are we talking? Is that like a 6 or 7 o'clock, or is that
6 a.m.?
6 a.m. Yeah. And have you found that
5?
What's that? Sorry?
It used to be 5 a.m. When I worked at the gym, it was 5 a.m. every morning.
Oh yeah.
I did that for 9 years. Yeah.
So when it comes to like increasing like a person's because I think a big thing that sort of would affect a lot of guys as they as they age is like, most men in their teens, 20s, they got like heaps of drive, they got heaps of energy, heaps of go. And, whether they get into, a high stress job, or start their own business, or start having a family, or just these other influences that start coming in that can consume space in their life. One thing that pops to mind for me is like, which we'll probably talk about later as well, is like, the more a person has stress in their life, like the less testosterone they'll be able to produce. And I'm sure you'll probably be able to go deeper into that later on. But when it comes to optimizing a person's hormones to have like drive and energy for their day, is the morning something that you found to be pretty optimal for most people?
So you probably look into the chronotype stuff as well. And I do find that there is a bit of a mixture of people, like where like some people will just be more driven in the mornings. And I always thought I was that early riser, but I'm just like one of the average ones, which is like, the middle of the day is my best sort of time. But I still force myself to get up in the morning and train, and then get into stuff. And then if I'm really committed, if I'm really feeling it, I'm doing a hard program, I'll do another workout in the afternoon. But I think you do need to work out what's going to work best for your current lifestyle, like, and then just make absolute non-negotiables. Okay, so if you're going to work out at 12 o'clock, because that's when the best time is for you, then it's non-negotiable. You just got to do it, no matter what. As bad as you feel for that day, you just got to go and do something. You just got to turn up. In terms of like, does everyone need to do it in the morning? I don't think so. And I think that would actually be not beneficial for a whole bunch of people, because there's definitely those night owls who are just, they're awake late at night, and then they sleep till like, middle hours of the morning. And I can't do that. Like, I cannot sleep past 6:30 at all. There's no way. So I think you do need to work out what works best for you. I don't think there's like a one way, okay, this is how you got to do it if you're going to be productive. Because I do know people that, some that work out in the morning, arbos, and they're very productive people. Like, you got to work out what's right for you. Yeah,
for sure. And when it comes to like because there'd be certain hormones involved to increase that drive in a person, like what sort of factors would you be looking at to like what sort of factors would really influence that level of drive, or that drive in a person?
Look, testosterone is like one of the big ones for males anyway. Testosterone is one of the big ones for drive. Like, And that's what I always harp on about testosterone and like how you can optimize testosterone. But the higher testosterone is, you're going to have better dopamine levels. You're going to be more ready to go all the time. There's so many benefits to having high testosterone.
Yeah.
Which is why I push back on these people saying like, oh, testosterone's a bad thing. It's males, it's bad. I don't know. There's this whole side I have to push back on right now to say, like males actually are so much more efficient, happier, and effective when their testosterone is high.
Yeah, right. So what are you saying? There's a movement that's pushing back on men who have high testosterone levels, or a movement that's pushing back on men
just
looking to
masculinity.
increase it? Hey?
Just masculinity.
Oh, masculinity. Yeah.
And so I sort of like push back on that, which is fine.
Yeah. So would you say that it's something common now for men to have lower than optimal testosterone levels?
Oh, massively. So like, there's research showing that it's dropped up to 60% in the last 20 or 30 years.
You kidding? Wow. That's huge. So massively. Like what?
We are far less male than our grandfathers.
So what sort of factors are producing that 60% drop? Like,
definitely, food plays a massive role in that. So like since the 60s, we've had this fat is bad for you, right? We've had saturated fat is bad for you, right? Like they're like, oh yeah, they've correlated that with heart disease. They said, okay, this increases cholesterol, and therefore cholesterol is bad because we find that LDL cholesterol is elevated in heart disease, right? Without actually explaining what LDL cholesterol is or cholesterol in full stop. They just correlate that, right? And little do most people know that you actually need cholesterol to build testosterone.
Yeah, right.
And so that's usually my number one go-to, is actually increasing the fats into people's diets. Right?
Yeah,
trying to stick away from polyunsaturated fats and your seed oils and rubbish like that, and getting more saturated fats into the diet as well.
Yeah, for sure. And like I've come across some research of that. Like I haven't gone deep into the carnivore stuff, but I have spent some time with Dominic Rapson before when he came over to Australia, and did a podcast with him as well. And I know that one thing that he talks about when it comes to fat specifically is he talks about having roughly like a 60-40 split with protein fat in the morning, and then in the afternoons or in the PM having like a 40% protein, 60% fat ratio, because he's to do with like sleep, with fat increasing the ability to drop off and activate that parasympathetic nervous system to go to sleep. Is when you talk about like increasing a person's fat in their diet or saturated fats, is that something that you like recommend doing throughout the whole day, or is it something that you would recommend like having it at specific times around training, or only at night time? Or
I just have it with every meal. Just try and balance it out through your meals. Like, I like his theory around that, like around the hormones, because all your fats are full of vitamins, right? And they are what's going to help fuel your hormones. And it makes total sense. But in terms of like when's it optimal, like I just try and go it throughout the day. Like I usually do try and have more protein before I do a workout. And if it's going to be a higher set workout, I'll have more carbs with that as well. Especially if it's going to be like legs and I'm doing high reps in the legs. But yeah, definitely agree with these like 60-40 works well. In total, I usually try and make fats about 30%, sometimes more of a total diet.
And just popping into my mind now, like I know we've had a chat about this once before about like food consumption and how much food you like to eat. And one thing that you pointed out for me was like I was under eating prior. And like for yourself, like you're a pretty ripped dude. You lift heavy weight. You mentioned before that sometimes you're doing like maybe 2 sessions a day. How much food would you consume per day? Like is it like, a couple hundred, like, 300-400 gram steaks, or
put it this way, I get an order of meat every week that's 8 kilos, and I go through that plus some. Plus, I usually go down the local butcher and get a bit more.
Yeah, right.
So I go through that. Plus, I'm adding in rice, berries, honey, bone broths. I'm still adding in a whole lot more on top of that. Heaps of butter. I go through like things of butter every week. Seafood, I add in oysters every week. I add in, there's so much I actually add in on top of that.
Yeah,
but
right.
Yeah, that's just like, that's almost just a minimum.
Yeah, gotcha. And like, if, one thing that I've seen is like, there's people who don't actually eat large amounts of those types of foods at all in their diet, and more often than not, it's probably more carb rich diet and protein fat as like a minimum amounts. But what you're saying, it's more optimal to be the other way, like higher proteins, fats, minimal carb, like lower carbs.
Yes and no. So yes, for most people, I think most people will absolutely thrive on that. I think like your general, I think most people will actually do really well on that. I do think there are people out there who also will actually go really well the other way.
Yeah, right.
And I believe it'll I haven't actually read this anywhere in literature yet, but it'll probably come down to somewhere in the microbiome where they've got bacteria which feeds off it better.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
And so like, and that's why you'll see this, like you'll see this in like the fitness community. Some people are saying, oh, you just need heaps of carbs, and like these people are just super lean and they just can eat as many carbs as you like. And then you'll have others who like do that same thing, and they just, you just put on weight and you're like, oh, what's going on?
Yeah.
And so I think finding the right thing for the individual is going to be optimal. But like, no matter what, I find if you have a steak for breakfast, like that is the best way to start your day.
See, I've heard you talk about that before. And is there something more behind it than just getting a big serving of protein in?
Well, yeah. So you're talking about the how protein's meant to satiate you and make you feel full for most of the day, because the body should want to look for protein, as protein breaks down to amino acids, and amino acids what are like your repairers. So they're going to go in and they're going to repair all your muscles and whatnot, even your gut. They're going to be their repairers. Now, there's also other things. So like steak itself has, what does it have? I'm mind blanking here. But it has factors to help with acetylcholine and dopamine. Tyrosine, that's what it has.
Yeah. Right.
And those two factors, it's going to be easier for you to be driven. Right. So if you increase those, you're going to be more driven, ready to go, ready to do things for the day.
Gotcha. So when it comes to like a drive, we're really talking about testosterone, acetylcholine, and dopamine.
Yep.
Yeah. Gotcha. Cool. And what are there, like, on top of, like, because obviously nutrition's like a really big topic in and of itself, and like you touched on before, like one of the things that really limits, or not limits, not the right word, but has caused that big drop in testosterone level in men over the years, down like that 60% drop, has been like the nutrition that we've kind of been marketed to throughout society, probably to eat those processed refined carbohydrates and things like that. Is we have that big influence there.
Well, it's cheap food, right?
Yeah,
with profit margin.
Yeah, that's it.
Makes sense.
And would you say that, like, on top of like eating a food that's high in those precursors to like acetylcholine and dopamine, are there any other factors or any other ways that you find that drive increasing? And what I mean by that is, like, do you have like strategies, or do you have things that you do to make sure that you're increasing that drive in your life? Like,
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know if that makes sense. That was a big
yeah. So you just ask
mouthful
for
there.
other things to do. Yeah, no, I do. I mean, my whole life revolves around it, I feel. It just depends what I'm currently at, what I'm working on. So my current ones is the big one for me is actually trying to relax and just bringing myself down. I'm like, I don't really call it meditation, but I guess you could call it meditation, but it's not really meditation. It's just like me just not doing anything. Like, and I don't watch TV. Like, I just will not do anything. I won't even look at my phone. Like, I'll just not do a thing. And like, I'll just try and whatever. I might close my eyes for a bit and like I just let thoughts run and I don't try and stop my thoughts or think of nothing. I just do nothing. And I think that's really important for me. Sometimes I fall asleep, sometimes I nap. Like I'll set aside 20 minutes every day mostly to have a nap. And like even if I'm not tired, I'll just do it because like I know that for me personally, I'm more productive if I do that afterwards, rather than me just like keep on going. If I keep on going, I actually just my work isn't as good. And so what I have is I have an acupuncture mat, and it's just like little spikes on it, and just lie on that for 20 minutes, and then I put binaural beats on. And like I'll just do 20 minutes, and there we go. I'm back up, and I find that's probably one of my best things that just keeps me really driven. Because I feel like if I just keep on going, and then I'll just sort of lose that drive. Or if I know if I go in and sort of let go of that constant drive, I'll actually do better.
So do you find that like you're naturally just a go type of person?
Yeah, massively. I don't ever see that stopping. I just even though I built my business, so I didn't have to be go. I still have that so wired into me that I don't know how it's going to stop.
Yeah, for sure. And like, would you say like that? Because I naturally got into this routine when I started working from home, where I'll have lunch, and for about anywhere from 20, maybe 30 minutes, I'll just like chill out downstairs. Like a similar thing. Sometimes I'll just lay down and do a meditation. Sometimes I'll do some breath work. Sometimes I do like just put some music on. And I find similar sort of thing for me. Like, I may work in the morning, go through a bit of a lull through lunchtime, and I find after that chill out session, like my head's clear again, and I can go. Would you say that like when it comes to like testosterone, having those moments to like down regulate your body, is that going to be like beneficial long term? Because like ultimately, if testosterone's that thing that gives you that drive, like it almost sounds like it's equally important to make sure those moments are in your routine as well.
Yeah. And look, just like most things, testosterone will sort of go up and down throughout the day. Like you'll have higher testosterone at different times of the day, right? So like that's pretty normal. And long term, yes, because cortisol and testosterone sort of have a linear line with each other, where if cortisol goes too high, testosterone is going to come down, and you actually find that in your workouts. So like after you've been working out, if you've been working out for over an hour hard, testosterone is actually going to start coming down as cortisol needs to rise.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So like if you're just constantly in that stress state, fight, flight, whatever you want to call it, your sympathetic nervous system, which is not a bad thing. Like sympathetic nervous system, you just need to know how to use it. If you're constantly in that, and you're not going to give yourself the time to go and do the repair, which you need to do in that parasympathetic state, time to bring yourself back down and do the other side of things.
Yeah, gotcha. And you mentioned like knowing how to use your sympathetic nervous system. What's how would you say like the most effective way to use it would be in your experience?
Most effective way.
Like,
yeah, I get what you're saying. It would be to make sure that you've given the parasympathetic system enough. Because if you haven't, then you'll never use the synthetic enough. And like, then you can go into other things like you can start breathing fast, and that will get synthetic going. You can slap yourself around a little. That'll get yourself going. Cold showers, that'll get the synthetic system going.
Yeah.
All your ice work, like that will get it going. The salts will get it going. I've tried.
Is that the sniffing salts, you mean?
Yeah, the sniffing salts.
Yeah, right. I was always curious about what they'd done.
Yeah, they also work. They're awful. You know what also works well is peppermint. So if you get essential oil peppermint,
yeah,
that gets you going.
Yeah, right. Cool. So I've been recently putting that in my daughter's little diffuser at night time to help her relax, but that wouldn't be the best one to use then, by the sounds of it.
It can go both ways. So like peppermint. So like if you sniff peppermint before you go and lift, you'll actually it'll help. It'll increase.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But it can it can be both. It can go both ways.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And what would you think there's other factors in the modern life right now that are impacting like the decline in testosterone?
Yeah, there's plenty.
Okay, let's dive into that, because I feel like that's like a pretty juicy topic.
Yeah, well, the number one is just sleep. Like it's people aren't sleeping well enough. And I would say well enough more than the hours, because like I find if you are really sleeping well, then 6.5 to 7 should be enough. And like if you're actually taking care of your body, then 6.5 to 7 should be enough. Should be. Obviously, some people will need more. Right? I find women especially will need more. Men can get away with 6.5 to 7 if they're healthy. If they're not healthy, then they're going to need more.
So, so when you're talking about it's about getting the deep REM sleep, right? So you're referring to?
So deep and REM sleep. But yeah, I think just like having a good ritual before you go to bed. So like if you're constantly watching TV before you go to bed, like that's your ritual. Your nervous system doesn't know the difference between what's going on in that movie or that show compared to real life. So if you're watching some sort of action movie, like your nervous system thinks it's in that. You know, it thinks it's going to be stirred up. It's not going to allow you to fully switch off. It's going to be like, oh, I've got to sort of stay awake here, even though like you're asleep, but it's still sort of like on edge.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's one of the big like things I talk about with a lot of my junior rugby players. It's like, okay, if you're like, you guys want to play PlayStations and whatnot, that's cool, but like just don't do it right before bed.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like I suppose just before sleep, that's like when we start drifting into that trance-like state as well, like that like that theta brainwave. Yeah. So yeah, everything would just pass straight into the nervous system. I've recently did a podcast with Brian Gold from Red Light Rising. And he spoke about, which is something we did in our household, was after sundown, we only have candles in the house now. And like totally transformed sleep, like almost instantly for the kids. Like we've got a almost 7-year-old and a 12-month-old, and prior to that we'd have the lights on in the kitchen, bedrooms, just until bedtime, and before bed switch them off a little bit earlier, like half an hour or something. And we switched over to this candle system, and the very first night both kids went to bed straight away. Like it was just insane the amount of impact that blue light can have. And
massively. And I actually have one of those red lights.
Oh yeah.
I have one of those red lights. It's one of my nighttime sleep rituals. Is I lay in front of that for 5-10 minutes.
Oh, awesome.
But I definitely agree. Like if especially the house I live in now, these lights, like you turn on one light and like there's like 6 million lights that come on. It's so bright, like it's so bright, like, it hurts my eyes.
Yeah, you can definitely feel the difference. I noticed after doing that, I've been doing that for maybe 2 or 3 weeks now, and I've noticed there's been a couple of nights where, just say like we go next door to my sister's place, or have some people around for dinner, you have the lights on, I can feel the difference. Like it's insane. Like just won't be able to get to sleep as well that specific night. So yeah.
That's why like in my room I changed mine to halogens.
Oh, have you?
Yeah. So like they're not as blue and they're nowhere near as strong.
Yeah, right.
The old school. And I just have a lamp now. So like I just put on my salt lamp and I don't have candles. I don't trust myself with candles.
Yeah. That's awesome. And on top of sleep, is there any other factors that you see like influencing a person's testosterone levels?
Well, you could also look at their estrogen. So like estrogen is what people recognize as the female hormone, but males have estrogen as well. The more estrogen you have, the less testosterone you're going to have, or it's going to be bound up together and you cannot use it. So what you need to think of is, okay, well, why guys have so much more estrogen now? And the simple answer is, we have a lot of plastics. People use plastics for everything, right? We use cookware and plastic water bottles and plastic this and that, and right. And what happens with the plastics is you get chemicals that run off into your water, into your food, whatever you're eating that. And the thing with that is then it's actually your body recognizes these as xenoestrogens, and the body just pretty much thinks it's an estrogen. Okay, and so if it's doing that, then it's pretty much turning it into estrogen in the body. Right. As simply as I can put it. All right, and that's lowering testosterone, and that is everywhere. And you can think about all the chemicals and that do that. So like if you're not using natural shampoo, toothpaste, whatever, if it goes on your skin, you are absorbing it. Right. And so like, and you think about like all the products people are sold, like to put in their skin, like it just, you're all absorbing it. And you can think about that from your water perspective too. If you're not filtering your water, same sort of scenario.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, it kind of highlights why it's such a predominant thing now. Like and what sort of when a guy specifically starts to reverse those things in their lifestyle, what sort of time frame, or is there a time frame that you've seen where like a guy can bring their testosterone levels up to like an optimal level? Like just say if they've been
if they go like gun ho at it and like just change everything, filter their water and do everything they possibly can, you're looking maybe 12 weeks. Can be a fast turnaround. Wow. Depends on the starting point.
Yeah, right.
If you're quite overweight already and like holding a lot of fat, it can be harder. And everyone's different with that. But it can be quite quick, because like if you go hard at something like that and change like your eating and your sleeping and reducing the plastics, like you'll be surprised at how much you can change. I know for me, as like, because I didn't do this all at one hit, like it was just something I just learned over the years and just started applying. And like you can literally go back and see like my body changing as I learned. Yeah,
right. That's really quite surprising that within 12 weeks they can sort of like is providing that they're like staying consistent and persistent with that, like to turn that around. That's pretty surprising.
And 12 weeks would be a massive change. Like 12 weeks, if you did that, all that stuff, like, and you went and you did a blood test, and on either side, I think a lot of guys would get a fair bit of change.
Yeah. What would you say the biggest pushback now is, or why do you see like there's this pushback with masculinity in the world right now, in your opinion?
Oh, that's a deep rabbit hole.
I guess like
it's I don't know how deep I want to go with this, because like it's almost as if they want people to be weak. There's people out there that want the world to all be really divided into the little separate categories, and when people are divided, they are weak and they're not strong.
Yeah, right.
They're strong together, and when we label everyone something slightly different as what they they say they are, or they it's a there's a lot of confusion happening.
Yeah.
I think there's a whole lot of confusion of the people, and the people are becoming confused, and kids especially. The kids are getting confused. They're like, they don't know what they identify as anymore. They don't know what they are.
It's nuts. Like I don't mind talking about it myself on here, but like when we had our daughter, I was just blown away that, you know, you've got 3 options there when you register. Yeah. It's like, I do not understand. And, you know, if anyone listening here is like going to push back on that, it's totally fine. But I just do not understand how there can be 3 options.
No, exactly. 100%. 100%. Like it's a way of confusing the people. It really is. And like you got schools in America where like the parents are asking to put in toilets that have a kitten on it because their kids identify as kittens. Like, how is that even possible?
You're right.
Like,
that's messed up, hey?
Yeah, like it just doesn't make sense. Like it's for me, it's dividing the people more so than what it needs to be. And you divide the people become weak, they become confused, they focus their attention on the wrong things.
Yeah.
And like that's such a big thing. Like it's just such an easy way to focus people's attention the wrong way, and then get people cancelled because their beliefs don't align with your beliefs.
Yeah. So
we're going to cancel you. You can't talk about this anymore. Not on here anyway.
Yeah, might get shut down. So like what's a bit of a for yourself, like what are some of the strategies that you use, like if you were to look into like this bit of the psychology of, you know, the drive aspect of a person, what are some of the ways that you stay mentally driven in your life?
The main one is for me is like I just know what I want. Like I'm just hell-bent on knowing what I want and going after it. And like, even though it slightly changes, well, it hasn't really slightly changed. The goal has always been I wanted 1,000 people active doing my programs, rugby players that would be helping all over the world. Like that was always my goal. Has been now for how many years? When did I leave the gym? 2019, since 2019. So actually I started before that. I started in 2018. And that's always been the goal. And like nothing, I don't stop until I get that. And like I'll get to that and I'll change the market, I'll change it to something else, or I'll make it better, you know? Yeah.
So it kind of sounds like you have like a really clear purpose, like you've got like a clear outcome in your mind, and you just organize your whole life around that. Is that kind of like how it works for you?
Yeah. Like everything sort of ties back into that. It ties back into how I want to live my life too. Like, I've got a big thing for like wanting to be able to make my own decisions, and you know, I've always wanted to have farmland and have my animals and be able to travel the world whenever I wanted. And, you know, so like money plays a big part in that sort of freedom aspect of things. There's not too much else I want other than to help people. So like, it's not like I want a Ferrari or anything like that. Like, you know, I don't want heaps of different buildings and cars and clothes. I have about 3 pairs of clothes. And that will never change because that doesn't mean anything to me. Yeah. So being really clear on what I want and how I need to get it, and you know what gives me fulfillment, I think that that to me is that's what gives me the most drive. Like nothing can beat that.
Did you ever experience like I guess one thing that's pretty predominant in cultures, just the influence that society can have on, you know, a person's thinking, and, you know, influence the things that they value, influence the way in which they should be making their decisions, how they should be, where they should be heading in life, and those types of, you know, thoughts or, you know, ideologies that society can sort of have on people. Like, did you ever have have a time in your life where you were like influenced by those outsiders' perspectives, or have you always been someone who has been very in tune with your like purpose and your goals?
No, definitely. I'm still influenced by society. Like as much as I am an outsider now,
Yeah.
to the norms of society, I'm still very much influenced by society. You can't help but not be. And like I'm not ashamed of that. So like there was definitely a time where like probably my early 20s where I was like, oh, I've got to move out of home, and moved out with some mates, and we did all that, and partied a bit, and like thought I was going to go buy a house, and I'll go and buy a mortgage, and have a house. I should go and do that. Should do these things. Should go and get married. Yeah, and like that all came crumbling down, didn't it? I view the world very differently now these days. Still very influenced by it.
Yeah. And do you find that have you always been able to easily like overcome distractions as they come into your life, like, or like have you always been, I'm not going to say always, because like this later part of your life, this later phase of your life, have you found that it's easier to have that resilience over external distractions coming into your life?
No, I still get distracted. No, girls still distract me. So always that's like my Achilles heel. They're always a big distraction. Like I'm very clear on what type of girl I want now, so like that helps. And I'm very much like I don't go for like the easy girls anymore. It's not like that. Like, but girls have always been a distractor for me. Now I'm very much clear. Okay, this is the type of girl I want. This is where I want to go with it, and this is what type of life I want to live with that girl. And when I meet that girl, I'm sure it'll be great. But like other distractions, I still get distracted. Trust me, still get distracted. I just make sure that I get what I wanted done.
And you mean by like every day, if you've got, do you like to set that clear target for yourself, and no matter what happens before you go to bed, that's what needs to be completed? Is that kind of what you?
Yeah, exactly. Like I used to write everything down. I used to be like write a list, but now like it's just in my head. I'm like, I know what I need to get done. Like I think everyone knows in their head what needs to get done. Like if you can cut out the bullshit, cut out the noise, not what's right, but where you need to go. And like I think everyone actually knows. I really do. I think sometimes they just like to be told, or they like to ask to be validated.
Yeah, for sure.
So like I know what I need to get done. It's just it's then okay. I get this done, and I get it done, non-negotiable. And if I don't, then I sit there in bed being like, oh, you absolute idiot! What did you do today? That's one less day you have.
So do you have like some golden rules that you live by?
Golden rules. I don't know. I'm just so like I can be too robotic. Let's put it that way. I can be like so like here's my structure. I do this structure. This is what I do.
Yeah.
And I'm very good at that. So it's a strength and a weakness at the same time. I don't know. I always sort of like try and prioritize my health first, my wellness, just me in general, so then I can hopefully show up my best to everyone else.
Yeah, for sure.
And like it's probably hard. I don't have kids, so like I don't know what that experience is like.
Mm.
But even when I have kids, I'll still try and get that in as much as I can.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Oh, it definitely does influence your life, like having the other kids in there, for sure. And like, if we were to circle back around to, like, people listening to this who are looking to, increase that drive in their life, would you say, because like I know I can put my hand up for this in the past, where I've felt like I've gone through these moments where I'm like, fuck, like, haven't gotten what I've wanted done today, turns into a couple of days, and then like I set myself this big sort of to-do list to get done, like for that specific day, or write one every day for the upcoming week. And it's almost like in the past, it's like so much stuff to try and get done. Would you say that for a person who's wanting to just start out, like, building that momentum in their life, just to start small?
Yeah, I just do one thing.
Yeah.
What's one thing you can do towards whatever you want to get?
Mm.
Like, it's always, and break it up. It's like you say, like, you write down, big things you want to get done, but like, what's one meaningful thing that you can get done towards that?
Mm.
And then what's one meaningful thing you can do tomorrow?
Mm.
And how can you build on that? Like, it might be an Instagram post, might be, a Instagram story, might be you doing a vlog, might be you just writing down plans.
Mm.
And they can all be wins. But like, until you start doing that, it's you can't develop that habit, because it's a habit and a skill.
Mm.
Like I'll tell you how I started making RDC, right? It was just an idea. When I started making RDC, or rugby development coach, it was a couple of factors. I was working 50 hours in the gym, so I had no time for my girlfriend, and she was like hounding me for it. And number two, I was training all these rugby players, and I was like, oh, I really enjoy this. And I didn't like how normal programs were for rugby players. I didn't think they were adequate. I thought they were dumb. And so I listened to Tim Ferriss's book on the 4-Hour Work Week, and sort of brought these ideas together. Okay, I got to go online. I thought I was going to bring out the CDs first, and I was like, wait, it's 2018 or something. No one listens to CDs. Anyway, so what I started doing was I just started writing out one program a day for a specific person, that was going to be for the website. This program's going to be for this type of person when they sign up on the website. This position, this neurotransmitter type. I actually didn't end up using any of those. I made it far more simpler in the end. But I that's all I did. I just wrote one program a day. So because I didn't have that much time, I just at lunchtime, I'd eat my lunch and I'd write a program. And then that got me on that roller coaster, just one thing each day. And then, next thing I'm on the phone to website developers. That was my one thing. And, then I have a website. And these things, it doesn't matter how slow the snowball is going. As long as you get that snowball going, you start to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah,
that's awesome. And I actually read something today, and ties back to what you said earlier on, having that clear purpose and knowing what you want. It's like, I know sometimes in life that I've experienced is like, there's so many other things happening, and you're trying to push all those 10 trains at once. It's going to take so much energy to try and get them all moving. But when you bring that focus into just that one channel of, all right, this is a clear outcome that I want, then it's going to be much easier to get that train moving. Yeah,
I read a book. This was a book that Charles Poliquin actually suggested, called The One Thing.
Oh yeah.
And it's literally just that. It's just find one thing to do. And I was just like, man, it's so simple.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it talks about dominoes, actually. It's like, a small domino can knock over one twice its size or something. And then that domino can knock over something even bigger than it. And then you just work your way up.
Yeah, gotcha. That's awesome. Really awesome. So like, what would you say to a person who's listening here? And, we've gone through a few different areas on the podcast today. moving from training to nutrition to some lifestyle factors, and even ways that you can like mentally prepare yourself to have more drive in life. What would you say to a person if they're like, all right, like what's the best place to get started? What would you say to them? Like,
I would analyze where you're currently at. I'd take a step back and be like, okay, this is what I'm currently doing. This is what my current routine looks like. I would analyze it all. Like, this is what time I'm going to bed. This is what I'm eating. And then I would analyze, okay, this is where I want to go. And if you don't know where you want to go, start writing somewhere where you go. Start thinking about it. Think about where you want to be. And then you can start to join the dots. And it might not happen overnight. Might not happen over a week or a month. Might happen over a couple of years. But until you take a step back from where you are right now, and you find out where you want to go, and that place might change. But when you've got that place where you want to go, then you can start creating that who you need to be to match that.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. And what would you say, like, if you were to, I know you said that you've been taking a step back recently and having a look at some of the factors in your life that have taken you to where you are now. If you were to, like, take a step back now, can you identify any specific characteristic traits that have really allowed you to propel yourself in that way? Like,
besides being super competitive?
Yeah.
Competitiveness is like that's my number one. Like, that's me making competitions with absolutely everything is what has always helped me. Like, and I try not to make competitions with other people, although I do. And when I do that is usually when I get like upset or I get annoyed or I get anxious, which doesn't really happen very often. But like I just make competitions with myself. Like, I just like, all right, how can I compete with myself today? How can I compete with myself from yesterday? How can I beat this from the other day? Whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's probably something that's just made me driven, is always wanting to do better in myself and having those competitions with myself. So
yeah,
probably something around that.
Yeah, for sure. I find it. I find that that's pretty. It's a great way to, like, look at your day. It's like, how can I make competition out of this, or how can I compete with who I was yesterday? It's a great way to sort of see, like, all right, well, yesterday I did really well with this. Today I'm going to do it better. Always making that progression forward. So yeah, I love that. And would you say that like when you think about that competition aspect, it's like, all right, well, I've shown up today. How can I compete in this way today? Is it almost like excitement that it brings in you, or is it almost like what would you say the emotion is that is activated in you or awoken within you when you think about that competition? Is it like
what's it like? It's just,
is it like is it just like a feel good feeling that you'll know when you achieve it, or
you don't even know when you achieve it though, because you're beating yourself. Like, you don't even see it. Like, you don't see it until you look back. Like, my skills with my marketing, with my business, with my training programs, everything just gets better and better. And my understanding of it gets better. The way I can explain things gets better. And, like, I want to do better. So like, I'm competing with myself. So like, I'm always actually getting better because I'm, putting that work in. I'm, trying to do better. And it's not until you actually go back and, look back. If I look back a couple of years ago and look at what I was making, I'd look at that now and go, that's a piece of shit. But that's part of the journey, right? Like, that's just part of it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't really notice too much. Like, it's not something I sit there and like actually ponder on. Like, I beat yesterday. Yeah, I'm not like that. I'm just like, I just know tomorrow's a new day, and in that day, I'm just going to be there beating what I did today.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. And so, like, if there was some people listening here today who want to find out more about what you do and how they can be involved in RDC, what's the best place to send them?
They can go straight to the website, therugbydc.com.
Yeah.
I have to think about that. I type it out every day.
That's hilarious. And I'll put the contact details below here. And is there anything that you've got coming up that you think could be of benefit to the people listening here today? Like, is there anything that listeners could be looking out for that's coming up in the RDC system?
Very soon, I will be releasing that a testosterone product, teaching you all about how to optimize your testosterone. It is based at muscle mass and obviously being lean, being athletic, having that look and feel. But like, you can use it for anything. Like, you can use it for drive, you can use it just to feel good, you can use it for sexual performance, you name it. Like, it's all about how to actually optimize, your inside, your insides and your environment. Yeah,
awesome, cool. Well, I'll put the links under this podcast description where people can jump onto your website, and I might also link them to your Instagram page as well, because I know you've got a lot of content on there. And if by whenever I put this podcast up, if the program that you're talking about, the testosterone program's up, we'll also link that below the podcast for the people listening as well. But Pat, thanks for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast.
Sounds good, mate. Loved it.
All right. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Thrive Success Podcast with Daniel Garbett. This has been part 1. And if you want to listen to part 2 of this interview with our guest, you can do so and go deeper into the discussion on the Thrive Academy. Below this podcast, you can access a link where you can claim a 3-day free trial to the Thrive Academy and watch part 2 of this series and be a part of our community.